Hey, good morning. Michael's is one of the places where you can go to get the supplies you'll need to make your art. Once you get in the store, you'll need to find the art section. Some of the items you'll find right at the beginning. There's some canvases. Art supplies section. The first thing you'll want to think about is what surface are you going to use? Paper, canvas, and here we go. We've got all kinds of different types of paper, so you'll need to decide what media you're going to use. Are you going to be using pencil or pen and ink, watercolor? So you've got drawing paper, and it comes in various sizes. You've got sketch paper, which tends to be a little bit lighter, and we should have some mixed media paper. That'll work for pen, ink, marker, some light watercolor, some of your drawing media as well. And then you'll have some colored pencil paper, tends to be a little bit smoother. Then we've got some watercolor paper towards the bottom here. Some of those come in pads as well as individual sheets. We've got some different things that you don't always see. There's some different toned paper for doing charcoal. The advantage to that is you can also use white with that. Again, we've got some mixed media papers and then some larger watercolor papers as well. On the very end, we have single sheet watercolor papers. This one tends to be, if you want to do a little bit more involved piece of watercolor artwork. This particular one isn't super huge, but it is a fairly heavy watercolor. Again, they range from 100 to 400 pounds. The heavier the watercolor paper, the thicker it is. And same with your other papers. They range from typically from your 50 pound to your maybe 80 or 90 pound, depending on what you are after. Alrighty, if you decide that you're going to be doing acrylics, you may want to use a canvas or a panel. Right behind me I've got the canvas packs. Those actually are pretty good value, especially if you're just doing some pieces for practice. If you want to do a higher end piece, you're going to find some of the higher end canvases over here. They tend to be a little bit thicker as far as the wood, so they tend to be inch and a half thick. And then they run in lots of sizes as well. They happen to be on sale at Michael's right now, which is it's a good time to buy when they're on sale. You can get them for about 70% off, which is awesome because full price tends to be a little bit spendy. Once you decide on a surface, the next thing you need to do is decide what media you're going to choose. And so in this aisle, we've got pencils and pens. We're going to be looking at some of the different options that you'll have. For drawing and sketching, you're going to be selecting graphite pencils most likely. They come in all different sizes as far as kits go. You may look for something a little simpler, maybe 2 or 3 pencils. You may go for a whole range that will have 10 to 12 pencils or so of various hardnesses. You'll also need to grab a good sharpener and eraser. Those are also here. You may also look for drawing tools, circle stencils, rulers, things like that. Those are all in that aisle as well. And then if you get into color pencil, there are lots of different types of color pencils. And they come in different grades even amongst the same brands. So you can see there's some higher end Prismacolors. If you get a complete set, they go for quite a bit, but the color pigment, it's a much more intense pigment than some of the store brands or the kinds you may find at Target or Walmart. You can even purchase individual colors if there are specific colors that you want, which is a fantastic feature because you'll probably find that some of your colors run out quicker than others, so you don't have to go back and buy a whole nother expensive set. You can purchase one pencil at a time and replace just the colors you need. Again, you do get what you pay for with the color pencils. The higher the price, typically the more pigment, and so the higher performance as well. They also have watercolor pencils. This Derwent is a pretty good brand. I think Corinne d'Art also has a brand that's pretty good as far as good pigment. And then the watercolor pencils are blendable with water, which is a really neat feature. You may try them either on drawing paper or on watercolor paper. The drawing pen and ink, there are all kinds of different types of ink. you can purchase, and they come also in different colors. So if you enjoyed that media, we use the Higgins ink, which is available here. And then there are lots of other brands and colors as well. If you enjoy ink and markers, there's lots of other types of pens, as well as the pens that you can dip and draw or do calligraphy. There are Prismacolor pens, there are Micron pens for fine line, and then there's all kinds of color pens from Sharpie, Stabilo, in all different colors. And then there are the Copic markers and other brands as well that do similar things. And you'll find those in individual colors and in sets. You'll also find brush pens. Some of them are more like the permanent markers, and some are more like the watercolor markers. So you want to check and see if it is water-based or if it is permanent. All right, here we're looking at the paints and the brushes. So once you've decided if you're going to paint, we've got watercolor paints, acrylic paints, there's oil paints as well. We have actually not gone over oil painting in class. If you want to dive into that, make sure you do your research, because some of those pigments and materials can be toxic and also prone to catch on fire. So do make sure you do your research and know what you're doing before you dive into oils. So let's take a look at watercolor. Okay, so like we talked about, you can buy the watercolor in pans, but you can also buy it in tubes, and it comes in a variety of levels. So your level 1 is your best value, typically your student value or student level paint. Level 2 is kind of in the middle, and then they come in all different colors and sizes of tubes. Actually, there's a couple sizes, but there's a lot of colors. There are watercolor inks as well at the bottom. And then you've got your professional level watercolors in tubes as well. Right. Then in paintbrushes, and these have been picked over quite a bit, it looks like, there are levels of paintbrushes as well. And so the higher the level, probably the longer lasting they are. Typically the more the soft for the watercolors, and then you won't have stray hairs and things like that in your upper level brushes. But they come in all different shapes and sizes, and really it's a matter of what you're after. If you want to paint tiny details, you're going to want some fine liners. If you're wanting to lay down a nice wash, you'll be choosing a larger brush. And then there are specialty brushes as well. As you can see, some of these are quite large, and they come in different shapes also. So if you're going to be painting with acrylic, again, you're going to have different levels of brushes, and they come in different shapes and sizes. They tend to have a little more stiffness to them than the watercolor brushes, so that they can push that paint over the canvas or paper. So you'll be selecting a variety of sizes and shapes. And again, the different levels come with different price tags. So your more basic level brushes will be a bit less expensive, and that's a good place to start. They may not last as long as the upper level, and they might not be quite as refined, but I think you'll find that they work really well for you. The paint also comes in different levels, and so you've got some of your student level acrylics, and those are going to perform fairly well for you. They're going to have less pigment and a little bit more binder and filler than your upper level brands, but the same is true of the price. The price as you go up into level 2 is going to go up into like the $7 a tube range. These are the student level. So if you're doing more of a fine art painting, you're going to want to use something like that. The level 2 Artist Galleria is really nice. I use a lot of that myself. It has pretty good pigmentation, and it will perform well for you. Then if you get into wanting a little bit higher performance from your materials, you've got your level 3 professional brushes. So I have a few of those. I like them so far. And then you get into the professional paints. So you've got your liquid acrylic paints here, and then some of your different tubes. There's Liquitex Heavy Body, which is that tube. It's the one that's sort of like the consistency of toothpaste. And pretty good pigmentation. And you've got your professional level inks, acrylic inks, and so forth. And again, lots of colors. There's a golden brand, and the pigmentation of those paints is really nice, and tons of colors. And then, so you've got lots of options that way. You can also start with a starter set, which sometimes will give you a price break because you'll get kind of a basic set of colors. But again, make sure they're the colors that you want. If they're not, then it's not the good way to go. And again, I will put up a list of some of the colors for that dual primary palette that I look at. And so that'll give you an idea of where to start as well. And this is Blick in Tempe. This is a great place to get art supplies. Unfortunately, the store is closed until further notice, but you can get things online at blick.com. And so if you don't find it at Michael's or some other store, this is a great place to look.